Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Off the Beaten Path. This installment is one of 3 from a recent trip I made to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and in today's episode, we'll be checking out Hawthorne Drum Shop. Chris Hawthorne has run this shop for years, and it grew from trading kits and working on vintage drums in his basement to small warehouse spaces, and now currently a storefront right upstairs of legendary Pittsburgh music shop, Hollywood Music and Sound. I've been fortunate enough to purchase drums from Chris before, and I always look forward to running into him each year at the Chicago Drum Show. Chris has a great perspective on what it takes to survive in an industry that's changed so much since the dawn of the internet, and his knowledge and passion for all things drums is clear from just the few hours I was able to spend with him during this trip. Before we get too far into the video, I want to remind you that I'm creating new episodes in this series each month, so please consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on all of my future video releases. And without any further ado, enjoy this look inside Hawthorne Drum Shop.
What's up, homie?
Hey Chris, how you doing?
Good, how you?
Good, thanks for having us.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Why don't you give me a little background about your history with drums and then how you got into this side of retail?
Okay. So it's funny, like I was never a gear guy. I think I started playing drums when I was like 13. And my family was not musical at all. I don't know, I had a buddy who like picked up a bass guitar and he started playing guitar and I was like, I don't know any drummers. So like I started taking lessons, took lessons for a couple of years. And like I started playing in church when I was like, I don't know, 14, 13, it was not great. And from there I just loved drums, loved to be a drummer. Then when I got into like high school and college, I was still playing drums. I was never a gear person. I was always like, how can I be a better drummer? What can I do better? But then like when I was, I don't know, 23, 24, I can't remember. I watched a video on YouTube of a guy playing a Vistalite kit. And I'm like, oh, that's sick. Maybe like I want to play a Vistalite kit. Because I was in a rock band at the time. They're like nice and loud and they're cool and they're clear. And I put there's a Facebook group and I put like this trade feeler out. I'm like, I have this Star Classic. Does anybody have a Vistalite? And hilariously enough, because this never happens, the guy's like, yeah, I have this black Vistalite. It's a 2613-16. Bring your kit over and maybe we can trade. So I went to this dude's house and he had this really clean black Vistalite kit and we traded. And then from there, I just was like, what's the next kit? And I kept trying to like trade and barter and get like the best kit to play with. But then like I kind of just started selling extra stuff and I had this extra money and I'm like, okay, well maybe I can just like make a few dollars selling drums. Was doing everything out of my basement and had like a little workbench down there, go to work, come home. All the weekends I spent were cleaning drums. And then my wife was like, you got to get all this stuff out of here. Like, I can't use the basement. And then at that point I moved to a warehouse, moved to another warehouse. And then there was a store here that closed and then I moved in here.
And this building is right above another music store,
yeah,
guitar
Hollywood.
shop,
Yeah,
right?
they've been around since 65. So they're like, have been in business for a long time. So they're kind of a legendary Pittsburgh music and sound store. So.
Okay. So from the looks of this shop, 90% at least is all vintage drums, right?
Yeah, we do primarily vintage.
Vintage or at least used.
Yeah, I use vintage. We do carry new stuff. It's not like I got started with vintage gear. So that's kind of what I gravitate towards because I know the most about it. And from like a business perspective, I think the margins are better with used stuff than there are new stuff. And there's also like, not as much competition. Like you can't go on Sweetwater and get, the 60s Oyster Black Pioneer, So that's kind of what I kind of lean and gravitate towards. I do like carrying new stuff if it makes sense, but most of our customers come to us because they're looking for something that's used. This is like a Renown, probably like an early 2000s Renown. And like, this isn't an incredible drum, but like, they don't make these drums anymore. So there's like the idea of, there's like limited numbers of these.
Yeah.
or like this and that condition. I think people also can trust us too, buying from us, because we don't have anything to hide. You know, we want the customer to have a good experience. We take good photos, we describe things. So hopefully people, when they buy from us, they know that they can trust us. So one of the questions that we get a lot that like a lot of times they don't have an answer to is somebody will buy a kit or a snare and be like, what's the story behind this? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I wish I did. I just got it from somebody. Some stuff does have like really cool stories. This is an old, this is a 20s or 30s. And this was actually used at by the Neff Orchestra. And like you can see all the years it was played, like October 7th, 1922, 23. This is a cool piece to me. So like this drum has a story. I've had it for sale for a while, and it might be the right person that needs this drum, but to somebody, this story is really cool. So a lot of people will be like, how do you not like just keep everything? And other than like the business side is, if I don't feel something about it or like be like, yeah, this should stay with me. It doesn't serve a purpose. So I think, you know, the average customer, and a lot of people will come visit us from out of town. If they don't have money to spend on a snare or a cymbal, they'll get something small. And for me, like the way I process that is like, yeah, I visited this, I got this, and that's how I remember my experience. Or like when you go to the Chicago show or anywhere else, or you visit a store, you're like, yeah, I got this there, and you might feel something about it for a while and sell it eventually, but sometimes not, you know?
I kind of think about, especially with vintage drums, I'm just a steward of it for a time.
Exactly. Here's another one I want to show you. So like I got this drum, this fellow's name's Jack. He lives a couple hours south of the city, and he was a barber, and he was a hippie. I was probably still is a hippie. Him and his wife are like the nicest people ever. Long story short, he had, over his years, he just collected drums, just from traveling around. I think at one point they owned like a production company, or like worked for a production company, so like they did shows with the Stones and all kinds of crazy stuff. So in his travels, he would just like pick up stuff. And his collection didn't have anything crazy in it, but this was the coolest piece out of it. And this is, I think this is I can't remember the year. I can't remember years of anything. I want to say it's a 50s, it could be a 60s Leedy. And I've never seen this Duco pattern. This is black and turquoise. And so I saw this and I'm like, like my experience with Jack and his wife was really cool. And I wanted something to remember it by. So I put this in my collection for a while. And I played it and it just kind of like didn't speak to me, but something like this would be something I'd want to keep, because I think of the experience. It's a unique drum that I haven't seen a lot of, and it kind of checks most of the boxes. This is our shirt rack that we don't have a place for. We have some just random toms back here. These are our kits. We built these shelves, 4 or 5 months ago. We have most of our stuff, like if you came here in the summer, the floor was really busier than it is now, kind of hard to walk around, so we built these shelves to kind of keep everything organized. I kind of miss the messy look where you're kind of just looking around and tripping on things, but I also don't want somebody to get hurt. So we built these, and I think it kind of keeps us more organized. So this is a one of one. I don't think I've ever seen or heard of another one. So if you look at it, it's a Slingerland, right? Gold Slingerland, pretty neat. So I got this in a kind of a collection I picked up from a fella. Went to his house in the basement, made a bunch of stuff, bought it, and I'm like, oh, this is just like a rewrapped Slingerland kit. And then I got it back, and I took the heads off, and you can't see. I took the heads off the bass drum because one of the hoops was cracked, and it was metal. Gold, like it was painted gold. You could see it had like some brazed in reinforcement rings. I'm like, someone like build a metal kit and put Slingerland hard. I'm like, that's pretty sick. So I clamped up the hoop and was thinking about it that night. I'm like, wait a minute, that doesn't make any sense. And so when I got in the next day, I took a look at it. And if you look at the insides, it looks exactly like one of the earlier ribbed Slingerland aluminum shells. It has the same welds, the same rings. Everything is the same. All the internal hardware, like everything is original in the kit, minus the spurs. And I realized that somebody built a prototype aluminum kit. And somehow it wound up at a dude's house in his basement, and then now it's here.
Wow.
So this is probably the rarest kit we have. This one's mine, so it's not for sale, but it sounds so good, and it's one of the coolest pieces I have.
We think of manufacturing as this really consistent process, and like,
Yeah.
if we run out of parts, we're not just going to use some other part and make it work. But back then, it's like, I think I've heard you say it before. It's like, well, it could have been Friday, and whoever was working at the shop really wanted to get home and just get done with it, you know?
You see so many different things that like some of it just doesn't make sense. So if somebody asked me, you know, let's say that there's a drum and it's like this mount, like they didn't make this with this mount. I'm like, it looks like it was drilled from the factory. It might not have been. Just because it's not in the catalog doesn't mean it's non-original. We recently had a silver badge Superphonic, and I was doing some research on it because I didn't really know much about it. And there are people like, oh yeah, like that wasn't original. Someone like took the paint off of it with paint remover. I'm like, no one's gonna do that. Just because you don't have a reason for it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. You know, some people think it was a prototype. I don't know. Maybe they just had a batch of badges that never were painted and they needed to put them on drums. You know, we don't know. This was 50 years ago. You got to think too that the people that were working in these factories, like I don't think a lot of them were drummers. I just think like Covington was where they made Rogers drums. That was just a small town. Like people worked at the drum factory. They're not like expert drum builders or anything. They just got an order, put it together the best they could, took a smoke break, and then went home. Student model Slingerland, right? Badge is almost on center. They almost are never on center. So I took it off to like take pictures of the insides, and I don't know if you can see that mark there. That's where they would mark the center of the snare bed. But the problem is, they put the strainer and the throw off here. You know,
it's like a half
strainer and the butt plate here. Like, so it's just, you know, I've seen companies try to like kind of do the full dress pattern.
Yeah.
But like, you got to figure people were wrapping it and then they were cutting out these squares. They're putting like little pins in there to hold them in place. Like the craftsmanship like this exists, but not a lot. Folks look down on import drums. Like for example, like this is our power tone kit. Sounds great. 20, 14, 12, 10, and this is like an extra Dynasonic. And these are made by Rogers USA. These are entirely made and put together overseas. Folks who grew up during the Rogers time period, 50s, 60s or whatever, and they're like, oh, they're American made. I don't know, like I don't want to buy a Taiwanese made drum. And like, I get it, but sometimes making stuff by hand isn't the most consistent. It can be, but sometimes it's not. And you got to think of, not to get in like a economic discussion, but like paying somebody who's good and knows how to make drums and knows how to cut bearing edges and everything, it's gonna drive your cost up. So it's kind of like a give or take. These look great, sound great, nothing wrong with them. I like them. So I got this off a guy. They're really clean. I don't think we even cleaned them. This is a 22, 14, 13 club day. I think these are pre-serial. Chrome hardware, this is nickel. This isn't bad. Like if you shined it up, it would look like this. Usually you don't find Duco finishes that are this clean.
Every Duco drum I see from the 60s is flaking and chipping off, and is that the lead paint back in the day was kind of part of that? Or
I don't know. I kind of like them when they're beat up like that myself.
I do too, yeah.
So this is a really kind of cool kit. These are a pain to work on just because the hardware they were using was not great. I mean, plastic gaskets kind of are a pain. We had to order these parts in from overseas. This is a cool kit. Slingerland Jet, 18, 14, 12. This is would be like a two-sided blue sparkle wrap. So if you would take this off, it would be red on the other side. It kind of gives it a deeper hue. Slingerland like had way too many variations of blue sparkle. The bass drum has metal hoops, like those are original. And then the pedal would go on here. And you can see that this has like this little slot.
Oh, so it's a special pedal for the bracket.
It actually works pretty great. I like wood hoops, But this slides up in there, goes down, then kind of interesting. Original Sound King head. Version bass, but that's another kind of interesting kit we have. This is gold veiled ebony pearl. Probably the coolest Slingerland finish I've ever seen. I don't care about years nor pay attention to it, but I think this was made for a few years. This is 62. The Delaware Drum Show, Joe Meckler runs that show. The first year I did it, I don't know if it was the first year they did it there, but it was at the Nurse Shrine. They had drums in the basement. And so he pulled up a bunch of drums, and this was one of them. There was two. The other one, Joe from One Weather got. But it's just a little Scotch bass drum. I think it's a 22x8 maybe. So like, I'll never sell this. It has meaning. They definitely could not put this on a drum now. Yeah. What are you gonna do? This is one of the new Rogers. I can't remember if it's a Cleveland or not, but this is the last available in Purple Diamond Pearl in these sizes. This is 18, 14, 12. This is a stop sign era Gretsch, 22, 15, 12, 10, 14, and then a 16 wide and 18-inch deep floor tom. Rogers did this as well. I actually have a couple deep Rogers floor toms. I've never personally had one, but I've seen them deep like this. These are cool. Like, this is the type of stuff I like. These are a set of 9.5-inch, you could probably call them sock hats, but from what I can gather, there's an early 40s stamp on them. Unique stuff that you don't see a lot, but you're not paying like a crazy collector's price on it. This is our cymbal section. It's really honestly not organized very well. We try to keep like newer, modern stuff on these racks. And then this is mostly vintage stuff. We have a lot of vintage cymbals, anywhere from like 13 single hi-hats all the way up to 22s, 24s. We carry Istanbul Agop, Peisty, Dream, Cymbal and Gong. Cymbals are my favorite because they're all unique and they're all very personal. Like, every cymbal is so different. I have a small cymbal collection. When I find something that's I didn't spend a lot of money on, that sounds cool and is unique, I'll usually hold on to it. So if some people come in my shop and like, I'll have this set up and they'll be like, "What is that? A trash can lid?" And it's a Keplinger. Great Keplinger. This is just the steel cymbal he makes. We sell some of these. Obviously, like, you're not going to take this on your trio. But a lot of people who play breakbeat stuff and have home studio recordings and are looking for a unique sound, they might lean towards something like this. I am not a flat ride person. I just don't have an application, but I know, some people are. These are the new Istanbul traditional flat rides. They sound like, I don't know if that's going to translate, but they sound awesome. Really nice woody stick definition. They're kind of like personally my favorite brand. So here's kind of a Oyster Black Club Date kit. I was having this conversation with a friend of mine, and I don't know if collecting is a thing anymore, or if it's going to be a thing. I just think that like the younger generation, meaning like people who are my age, like their 30s and 20s and even 40s, who didn't grow up during this time period, like, it's kind of a new thing. And I don't know if a lot of them are collecting. You're not 65 years old and saved your whole life and have a lot of disposable income to drop on $5,000 on a drum kit. A lot of people I know who buy from me and buy from some of the other shops that I'm friends with, they're players, man. Like, they like player grade stuff. They don't want to spend primo prices. They don't care about extra holes or fade. But then there's like the guys who came before us who are like mad collectors. Like, if there's a ding in a bearing edge, or if there's a crack in the wrap, or like an unoriginal tension rod. I cannot wait till the day where I don't have to say unoriginal tension rod to my listings. You know what I mean? But that's kind of an interesting conversation too, is like collecting versus playing. Talking about like cymbals. Bronze cost of everything is going up, everything. And the idea of taking an older cymbal that has cracks in it and modding it somehow to make it playable, is interesting. We don't sell a lot of cracked cymbals, but we repair them. Say this K had a flea bite here or whatever. We could cut it out, sand it, make it look good. 10 years ago, I don't know if anybody would have wanted to pay for that. But now you can responsibly fix an old cymbal so it's playable and not gonna crack again and still get a decent amount of money for it. Man, stuff's so expensive now. Everything's expensive. You know, at some point, is there gonna be a tipping point with being able to afford new stuff or using old stuff? So this isn't a special cymbal, it's just a giant old 70s, I think a 70s A, and it's a boat anchor. There might be somebody who could use this, but you know, I've thought about maybe I get it sent out, I get it lathed, do some hammering in it. That costs money, but you have a more playable cymbal. So recording outfit, what is this?
58.
Yeah. So I don't know anything about recording, for the record. Giuseppe, who is our shop manager, knows quite a bit. And I was doing demos for a while just on my iPhone. They're fine, but it's gotten so much easier to record now. I'm sure that we were talking like you're not a tech guy either. So we have this like little thing here, Focusrite. I think, what do they call this? An input thing?
Interface.
Interface, thank you. This is an interface. We got this, just 2 inputs. We have this mic. We did 1 mic for a long time, and then we decided to do 2 mics. And then we have this mic over here. This is my friend Jeff's. He left it here, so we use it. We sell mostly online. I don't necessarily, if I had a choice, I would rather sell 100% in store as opposed to online. It's cooler for people and it's cooler for me in a way to have like people come in, and I do like helping people. Will come in for like, I need a cymbal that sounds like this or a snare that sounds like that. You don't get like a personal touch with when you get an email that says somebody bought something. And that kind of relates to recording, is like, it's cool to be able to show people the way a cymbal sounds, and it's cool to be able to show people the way a kit sounds and a snare sounds. But it's not real. Like, it's not like you're in the room with the person. We do demos of all of our cymbals and our kits, and sometimes folks will get a cymbal and they say it sounds way different. I mean, you're in a 12 by 12 room, it's gonna sound different. So it is cool to be able to have this and have the technology be so easy. 12 or 15 years ago, I put my iPhone in a bass drum case, closed the lid, and started playing drums so I could demo something. And that was the only way I could get it to not. I don't know anything about recording. If you want to have a drum shop in the year 2024, you have to be able to do this in some manner. So this is where I keep my personal gear. This is one of my Camco kits. This is an LA Alice Cooper white kit, 24, 15, 18. I have a 13 and a 14 with matching gold stands over in the shelf there. I got this from a guy in LA. I grew up playing big drums, 26-inch kick, usually 2 floor toms. This is functional for me, for the type of music I like to play. This is a Emerald Bell Bronze. So from what I understand about these is Emerald was like an import company, I think from the 80s, and they made these to compete with the Sonar HLD 590s, which were bell brass drums. This is legit bell brass snare, cast snare. It's super heavy. I think it's like 24 pounds. So my friend Caden, he plays in a band called Cool Kids, and he got interested in making drums, so he made this for me. This is a Gretsch Phosphor Bronze. This drum is unique because it was never clear coated. Came from an endorser friend of mine who had this custom made for himself. This is actually, I learned, this isn't a spun shell. This is actually a rolled shell. They just cover the joint. But this drum sounds so good. I love this drum. This is a steel Keplinger. I got this from the original owner, stamped to 6/16/98. I love his drums because they're so simple.
Yeah.
And they're great. Original brass Keplinger. I got this, I don't know, a few years ago. This is the only drum of mine that I've ever drilled. I can't remember what heat throw-offs he uses on them, but I hate them. I don't care if you made them, they suck. So I put an Indy on it. There's an extra hole behind there, but this is like my main gigging drum. This is a Board of Education acrylite. So Ludwig made these for the New York schools back in the 70s. This one's from Sterling High School. It's a school drum, so someone ripped the badge off and had to put another one on. But it's also got Board of Education NYC 92 in there. I don't know what this is. I think it's a Keplinger. I asked Greg, he doesn't think so. It came from Seattle. It's a heavy brass shell. I don't know who else would have made this, but if you made it, please get a hold of me, because this drum sounds great. This isn't like a special drum, but I like it. This is just an LM400 that was plated in gold. I don't have a LM400 other than this. I just thought it was kind of a neat thing. I got this from a random guy in Arizona. I didn't know what it was, so I bought it, and it's a Blamire shell. I don't know if it's Blamire or Blamire, but Hal Blaine played, his legendary like giant rack tom kit with a blue sparkle.
Yeah.
Spun fiberglass, 3x13. I think this is a early 40s cymbal. Really thin. I mean, look at the hammering and the lathing on that. I've seen very few Zildjians like this. I call this the cat urine cymbal. It's just a 22K or 22A. It has like a lot of dark patine on it. The lady I got it from, she had 40 cats and smoked. So I need to wash my hands after that one. This is an Apollo cymbal. This was just a Japanese cymbal. And from what I gather, they didn't use the same alloy all the time. It was kind of like what you can get. There's actually like people who collect these, which I think is neat. They're not great, but they're kind of interesting. This is a set of Spizzacchino. I think it's Spizzacchino. Maybe it's Spizzacchino. I don't know. Don't yell at me. He was like a legendary cymbal maker from Italy. He died. He didn't make a ton of cymbals, but these are a set of hi-hats. And normally, I like his cymbals, but I wouldn't keep them because they're so expensive. I got this as part of a lot. So this says R. Spizzacchino, and then 2001, it looks like. I have a small collection, nothing crazy. I guess enough to keep me interested, So not everybody's allowed back here, so you feel special. Now this is just kind of like our workshop, packing area, photo area. Yeah, it's all Backstocks are packing. This is my beautiful photo area. I'm also just too lazy to take out all these holes in the wall. So instead of just spackling them, I edit them out every time I do a photo. These are all of our hoops. So we were talking offline about parts. We don't sell a lot of parts. Some we do if we have like a lot of them, but every time I sell a part, I need it. And you buy a kit like that kit there, needs parts. A lot of kits need parts, and already having them allows us to work on them quicker, and then we don't have to buy parts and that whole shebang. If we get a kit on it, like doesn't have heads on it or whatever, and we want to have matching heads, we use a tack. They're fine, they sound great for what we're using them for. We find that a lot of people will just want to use their own heads anyway. Parts, rails, Japanese stuff. I have a lot of Japanese stuff I don't want. So if you want to buy Japanese stuff for cheap, please email me. This is Aaron's workstation. He does a lot of our cleaning and shipping. If you watch Derek Mance's video, he is very organized and a very nice man, but yeah, I am not Derek Mance. Ludwig stuff, Slingerland stuff. These are kind of cool. These are new old stock 20-inch Ludwig front heads. So we'll sell these. They're just pricey if you want a new old stock head. We're always working on something, which is kind of why we don't have enough manpower to be just waiting for somebody to come in, which is why we usually do appointments on weekdays. This was supposed to be a workbench, but this is this on here. So usually we've got to work on for somebody, we come back, or we're doing some repair, we do it here. But these are all of our small parts. Cup washers for standards, swivel nuts, clips for old snares, pretty much you name it, it's somewhere. So again, we try to keep this somewhat organized. Slingerland tom mounts, diamond plates for spade mounts, some SS mechanisms, because every single super sensitive we get in never works. So nickel is like a nightmare to clean. Sometimes we use a tumbler. If you're cleaning nickel, please don't do it by hand because you won't want to end your life. This is it's like crushed up walnut. You run it for an hour or so, and it actually, let me show you. So like a lot of nickel looks like this. Some of it just like the plating degrades and you can't do anything about it, but sometimes you can clean it up. And if you throw it in that tumbler, it'll make it look pretty nice. This is some stuff we wouldn't sell because inlay is like the hardest to get is old inlay. Blue oyster wrap, old green wrap, just a bit of mod orange, but there's all kinds of stuff in here. This is what I like. Sometimes we'll get like those rolling cases we call, and they'll be like inlay in it, so we call it like case candy. But this is like kind of what I think is neat. Use bass drum heads. It's kind of cool because we have not a system, but what sound do we want? Like a little bit higher, mid-tune. So like we could use this, even though this is an old Rogers head. Put a felt strip on there and know exactly how we want it to sound. This might sound great on like an old Tama or whatever. Kind of a modern drum that needs a port. We have something with a port on it. The whole idea is just having everything that we could possibly need when we need it, even though we don't have that at all times. You know, it allows us to keep our costs down. I don't think our prices are like crazy low, but I think that they're competitive. We get a lot of questions about how we clean drums. This is Novus 2. This is a plastic cleaner. So this is dirty. First thing we'll do is spray it down with like, this is a mixture of simple green. And then once that's clean, if this is like a plastic drum, we'll use around a Novus 2, wipe it down really good, wipe that off. That gets like kind of gets out micro scratches. And then this is Novus 1. This is like a kind of like a polish, and that kind of gives a little bit of a shine. It's like our baseline. We have some other products we use. Most of them are car products. So there's not a lot of like secret cleaning things, at least that I know about. It's all basic stuff that you can get at Home Depot or, you know, at whatever auto body shop you have by you. We'll sell a kit that we clean and like spend hours on. And then we'll get an email. The guy's like, man, this kit's so great. Thanks for selling it to us. I took it all apart and gave it a bath. And I'm like, oh, geez. Again, it comes back to like the idea of ownership and something that's special. Like, This is my kit. I got it. Like, I bought it from whatever and I cleaned it and this is it. So people, I think, especially who like older drums, like to get their hands dirty a little bit. This is our shipping station. Now these are our boxes, so we're really careful with the way we pack. We know what we're doing in that regard, and number one, we don't want our customer to get a broken drum set. If they do, everything's insured, we take care of them. We also don't want something that's not made anymore to be broken. So we use a combination of packing peanuts. It's like a bigger kit. These are biodegradable. I've actually eaten one before. It's like a Cheeto without the cheese. We use bubble wrap, packing paper, and so forth. All of our wood hoops, these always come in handy. We don't sell these. This is a Moonglow Satin Flame kit. Super classic sky blue pearl. There's a Ludwig blue standard there. If anybody has a burgundy sparkle round badge floor tom, I want it. Or I think this was the Centennial. It's a 16 and a 13 Slingerland. Slingerland, chrome over wood, 6-ply, Black Panther, Super Beat. This is all Hollywood backstock here. That's like most of their cases and stuff, but they are kind enough to let us keep our bubble wrap back there.
Chris, thank you so much for having us out today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, if people want to reach out to you to make an appointment to come visit the shop or have an interest in something you have for sale, what's the best way to get in touch?
Email or phone. I always have my email on my phone. So most days we're here, somebody's here from like noon to 7 for the most part. So you can always call too, we'll pick up the phone. If you want to come by something you need. We always have people coming in for sticks, heads, accessories. Yeah, thanks for coming in, guys. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
Yep.